Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where in the world you might be listening. Thank you once again for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. Doesn't get much bigger than this. Liverpool are coming to town. Here we go.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Hello, squaddies. Welcome back to Squad Central. The massive game this weekend is upon us, and I'm delighted to be joined by a very talented broadcaster, writer, presenter. We be nice in chat. I know it's Liverpool, but Harriet Prior from the Anfield Wrap. Thank you so much for joining me. How's it going?
Thank you. That was a nice introduction. Nicer than I usually get introduced. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, be nice to me, everyone.
Awesome. Harriet does the transfer deadline day and stuff for Sky Sports as well. She's a brilliant broadcaster. And you guys, by the end of this, even though she's a Liverpool fan, I'm sure will like to follow her. And you can hear Harriet E. Prior across social media and check into the Anfield Wrap as well. Did a little piece for them yesterday that you guys might be interested in listening to. A good analysis with myself and Harriet on the game. Well, here we are. The big question for Liverpool is surely losing one player hasn't caused this demise of the mighty Reds who have been absolutely dominant over the last few years, Harriet.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because people have been trying to pinpoint exactly what's going wrong and why we haven't had the best start to the season after such an emphatic last year. And it's really difficult to find a solution. I think people have wanted to point to a lack of investment and blame the ownership and blame the fact that we didn't bring in any new midfielders. You mentioned losing Sadio Mane there, but I don't feel like losing one player, as you said, could contribute to the demise that has happened and the drop-off that has happened this season. Can you look at a lack of confidence, a hangover from the amount of games that they played? They played every single competitive game possible last season. Could that be a reason? Or maybe it's just a combination of all of them. And the manager's spoken quite a lot about if you lose that 3, 4, 5% from every single player, the drop off that can cause when you're playing at that highest level. And I just think that's what we're seeing at the moment. But there has been more positive signs especially in the midweek game. I felt that there was much better performance, but that was against Rangers, and we know that Arsenal are going to pose a much bigger challenge and threat. So it would be interesting to see how we get on.
Arsenal fans are always like, it's typical. Liverpool find their form or a player comes back from injury just when we're about to play them. I can hear their heads spinning right now. The fans who were calling for Klopp's head, I'm assuming that was just a loud noise on social media by a few, because surely Liverpool fans recognize what he's done for the club since he's been there, right? And even the owners as well. I'm not sure Liverpool fans can point the finger at the owners. Maybe you can educate me on that one.
Oh, I think people that are talking about the manager I just can't understand that viewpoint whatsoever, because even when we have had difficult periods and since Jurgen Klopp has joined, he's been the one that has managed to get us out of them. So anyone that is saying that he is not the right man to get us out of this situation, I just don't agree with personally. I mean, obviously there are going to be difficulties and they are going to have to work out different ways to find solutions, but I personally think he's the best person, one of the best managers in the world to be able to do that. So completely back the manager. I think the ownership question is maybe a bit different in that there is a little bit of truth behind what people are saying, the criticism that they're coming up with. I think by and large, the ownership have made really good decisions over the last few years when it comes to transfers, and they've brought really clever people in. But I just feel recently that they maybe could have done with a little bit more investment in that midfield area. And I think you look at the forward line, the defence, we've brought in during Klopp's tenure really clever signings, Virgil van Dijk, and then backup options as well, and developed the players really well. But that midfield, you're relying on people who are either a little bit too old and experienced like Milner, or you're bringing in people like Harvey Elliott who are a little bit too young and too inexperienced, and we're not finding that middle ground at the moment. So I think that's where the criticism in terms of the transfer comes from, and I have to agree with it a little bit. I would have loved to see one more midfielder come in during the summer window, especially when you see Manchester City signing such huge stars and big players. We should be competing with them on that level.
Yeah, it's almost like they're going to start playing in a league of their own. Haaland's going to get a whole rest of the World Cup. So is Mo Salah, though, a player who I think has been, I would say, a little bit disrespected or not respected enough for his achievements. I don't quite know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but it doesn't seem like he gets the love that he deserves. Not that Arsenal fans want to sit here and do a loving on Mo Salah, but we have a couple players like that too. Who do you think in this game against us is going to be the most important player for you?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think it really depends on what formation he chooses to play, because we saw in the last game against Rangers that we basically set out with a 4-4-2 rather than a 4-3-3, which Klopp has been so used to playing. And in that 4-3-3, I think that midfielder is really important. But almost when you're playing that 4-4-2, the two midfielders, out and out midfielders that Klopp put in, their role didn't become as vital. But I think whenever Trent has a good game, Liverpool seem to have a good game. He's such a key and vital figure. Same for Thiago. Whenever he's available and fit and he's playing really well, I think the whole team just clicks a lot better. And then I think quietly, Luis Diaz has been a really, really key player for Liverpool in the last few weeks and months. When Liverpool haven't been on their top form, he's been one of the ones that have constantly been pushing and performing probably to the level that you'd expect from him. So there's a few players in there you can look at, and I just wonder who he's going to play in midfield alongside probably Thiago. I don't know if there's going to be two of them, three of them. It'll be really interesting to see. So, yeah, I think if we can make sure that Diaz and Salah in particular are firing, then I think they can trouble Arsenal's defence.
Yeah, Diaz is my player that I pick because he can create something out of absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
Scores bangers,
what
creates.
Salah used to do, really.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of lost that side of his game a little bit. He's become a bit more controlled in his positional, he's not so fluid, whereas Diaz just pops up and I think he's really versatile. And yeah, like you said, something out of nothing, and sometimes he scores a goal, and that's what he's added this season, is a bit more finishing ability.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you guys jumped in and he didn't end up going to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Really thank you for that, for sure. With Salah, do you think it's a case of being less selfish, so opening things up for players like Diaz who have come in? Because he was tagged with that selfishness. Like Martinelli loves the ball. He's a ball hogger. But, I think, he's a lot younger. He's learning in terms of distribution, when to release the ball, look up a little bit more for your teammates. He's so hungry. He's like this, bull in a china shop. He just wants to go, go, go. Do you think there's an understanding between them that they can really cause problems for Saliba and Gabriel and the back line?
Yeah, I think anyone that sort of talked about Salah being selfish, it was dismissed because of the numbers that he was putting up. Like, you couldn't argue with him being selfish if he was scoring that many goals and providing that many assists. But I guess the conversation's cropped up a little bit more because he's not scoring as much. But I actually think he complements the other players in that attacking line really, really well. And I think especially you've seen more with Nunes coming in, the way that they're trying to link up and connect with each other. And I thought especially against Rangers, Salah was trying to put it on a plate for Nunes. He was really trying to aid him and support him. So I think especially with another few days to have worked on that in training, and if they do decide to go with those four attackers and they'll have had a bit of time to work on how that's going to work, I do think they can definitely get at Arsenal's defence. It's just whether we can stop leaving so many gaps in behind, because at the moment that's been our big problem. But definitely, I think that those attackers, they all have world-class ability to be able to get and trouble any single defence if they're on the top of their game. So that will be what's really important.
So when Klopp first came and your style of football kicked in, it was heavy metal football. And I would say that the way we're starting games, it's like try and smack your opponent in the mouth. It's more like a boxing match, jab, 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 uppercut, boom, try and just hit them quickly. And a lot of that has to do with, of course, playing Martinelli, playing Saka, playing Jesus, how they connect with that midfield, the new role that Xhaka is shining in and allowing certain freedoms, not only for himself. It's like, do you on that right side, do you go with Saka? How many players will go with him? Jesus is then open, Martinelli. When I mentioned to you yesterday, we spoke to Stevie Nicol. His biggest fear was Saka and Martinelli. When you're sitting in the pub and you're talking to your Liverpool mates or the Anfield Wrap guys, what do you agree with him on that? Do you think, especially with how we've seen Martinelli, as Arsenal fans would say, put Trent on toast, not, do you fear that too? Is that your
I,
biggest fear?
I think watching Arsenal this season, there's clearly been a big step up, and I think that's as a team and as a unit. But like you mentioned there, some of the individuals and Saka's a really, really talented player, and there's no denying the talent he has moving forward. But I think the biggest one for me is probably Jesus, because he's come in and he's been that focal point in Arsenal's attack. And I think that the criticism maybe in the last few years is that the chances that are created aren't finished. And this season he's come in and he's raised his game, and the game and the whole team around him have really raised their game as well. And I think that's why you've seen the progress and the progression of so many players. And you mentioned yesterday, we spoke about Saliba as well. There's just some really, really talented individual talent in that Arsenal side. But I also just really like the sort of the twin track approach of you having this younger talent and then you combining it with the experience coming in. Zinchenko's been a good signing. I don't think he'll be available, will he, at the weekend? But you know, it's really good transfer strategy over the summer and giving the manager time. So yeah, those players you mentioned are definitely ones that Liverpool fans will look at and be concerned about. And yeah, it will be a good. I think it'll be a good test for Arsenal from a sort of impartial perspective to see that how far they have come. They had that slip up against United. How, you know, then they won against Tottenham in the North London derby. But how are they going to perform against really top sides? And obviously Liverpool aren't in the form of their lives, but they are still a top side. So how are they going to manage that step up? Because had quite a nice start to the season, would you say? Like,
I would say,
you know, quite good opponents to try and kickstart and get really good confidence. So how are they going to keep building on that? And that will be interesting for me to see against Liverpool if I'm looking at it impartially, which is hard to do.
Yeah, that narrative of us having played no one, I just think the Premier League's become so competitive,
Oh,
and
for sure.
you know, I don't buy into that at all. I mean,
No,
Crystal
I mean,
Palace were lauded for smashing us last year, weren't they, Harriet?
I was about to
And
say, look at who Liverpool have dropped points to as well. Like Brighton, we dropped points to. Fulham, we dropped points to. Even the teams that you wouldn't expect to put up a challenge, they 100% can in the Premier League. So there's no easy starts. But I guess what I'm saying is against you know, another top four side.
yeah, no. I listen, I think this game is bigger than the North London derby in terms of proving that point, because some people could look back and say, "Oh, it's a derby. You win at home, Tottenham win at home." For me, this is a massive test against the team that we've been compared to in terms of looking at the trajectory of how John Henry, bringing in Klopp, the evolution, 30 years without a title, keeping the faith, trusting a process, building a system, all of that stuff. I think Liverpool has been a team that we've kind of looked up to in that regard in terms of patience and, you know, look at the fruits of the labor. I said to you when we were doing Sky transfer deadline day in the summer, you know, I wasn't a believer in Arteta at first because, you know, you finish eighth and get kicked out of a European semi-final by the man you replace, and then you start the next season with no points after 3 games, you know, 0-0-0. You can ask questions and you can demand, you know, to kind of look and see where is this going. Proven that the Cronkies, a little bit like John Henry, have kept the faith with their young manager, and here we are. From an outsider-insider perspective, how do you see Mikel Arteta? Is he someone that Liverpool fans, like in your circle, they respect? What's your take on what he's done at Arsenal so far?
Yeah, I think people respect, especially that he's been given time. And I think that, you know, I think Klopp actually spoke about it in his press conference today about how much he really respects what Arteta's done. But you can be given time. If you're not a good manager, it doesn't matter how much time you get, you're still not going to perform well. And actually, I think because he's constantly shown signs of progression and shown he's always had a vision. And I think maybe what Arsenal lacked a little bit between the, you know, the end of the Wenger period up until Arteta started performing better was like, what was your clear vision? And I think this season he's like, this is it. This is what I've had time to create and produce and really work on. And you can see that now from an outsider perspective. He seems to be well respected in the club as well. I think the players just seem to really like him. I don't think you can underestimate that, because it's some teams in the Premier League, especially ones that are struggling a little bit, you can tell that sort of synergy between the players and the manager isn't there. And I think at Arsenal you can see that they all just seem to be really enjoying themselves. And you can't underestimate how important that is, because when there is that sense of collaboration and positivity in the camp, that produces good results on the pitch. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I think, yeah, there is a lot of respect for Arteta and what he's done. And sometimes I guess his lack of experience compared to other managers like Guardiola, like Klopp, might do him an injustice. But how, you know you're going to get better by having being given that time, and that's what he's got now. So I still don't think he'll be regarded unless he starts winning major trophies on that same level. But only time will tell. And I think he's a clever young manager, and the game needs more of them.
Very nice. The proof will be in the May pudding, Harriet. Let's see how this all shakes out. Okay, we'll get you out on this one. So if I'd have told you at the beginning of the season that Arsenal would be 11 points ahead of Liverpool, and after our meeting in October, if we'd win that home game, we could be 14 points ahead of you, would you have sent me or driven me to the asylum, dropped me off, and said to, the staff there, just throw away the key because she's really quite a nutter?
I mean, I think we were doing a preview show at the Anfield Wrap yesterday, and we were saying if someone would have given you the 2 records of the teams and said which team, which record is which team, you'd have put our I think it's 2 wins. I can't even think now, 5 draws, whatever our record is this season. You just say, right, that's Arsenal's, and Arsenal's is Liverpool's, and it's sort of switched roles, hasn't it? No, it's frustrating. Look, I can't deny that Arsenal have. Their league position doesn't lie, and they are top. And the only thing separating Manchester City from the top of the league at the moment, and Liverpool fans may be quite happy about that. But look, they've done well, and Liverpool need to win really against Arsenal. I don't even think a point's enough. They need to win because they need to keep pace. They can't let the league get away from them and those top spots get away from them at this early stage in the season, because it doesn't matter how well you do in March, April, and May. Then if you've already lost it by the time Christmas comes around.
Yeah, and that's maybe why you made up those 11, 12 points from January to the end of last season.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't enough because of some of the bad results earlier in the season.
Exactly.
Right, what's your prediction? Let's get you out on your prediction.
Oh, well, I'm always going to go for a Liverpool win because I will never predict Liverpool not to win because I just can't. So I think it's going to be a really tough match. And I think if it is a Liverpool win, it will be really close. And I'd see both teams scoring. So I'm going to go with a 2-1.
2-1. All right, Harriet, I have got it on screen here. This is where everyone can find you. Make sure I've got it all right. Harriet E. Prior. And of course, you are at the Anfield Wrap. And hello, welcome. Come join us. Thanks so much for joining us today, Harriet. Really appreciate it. We look forward to talking football with you again soon. Take care.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.